I want you to celebrate your strengths. Most often, you can use your strengths to get an even bigger impact or to leverage a strength to use when working on an opportunity area or a business challenge. But you won't get the benefit of those insights if you don't reflect on what is going well. Welcome to You Belong in the C-Suite podcast. You are ambitious in life and in your career, but something is missing. You want to bring more of your passion to what you do. Because let's be honest, you pour a ton into your work, and it needs to mean more. I'm your host, Laura Eigel. I'm a mom, wife, PhD, coach, advocate, introvert, and indoor rowing fanatic. I'm passionate about living a life that's in line with my values. We'll give you the actionable tips and tools you need to lead with your values, make a difference, and have career success. The world needs more diversity and authenticity in the top jobs at organizations. Your leadership belongs there. You belong in the C-Suite. What gets you up in the morning? What drives your decisions? What do you stand for? No idea, not even sure where to start? I use my values to guide my life and career. It's the basis of how I've built boundaries for myself and stuck to them. Are you ready to dig into what matters to you? Go to thecatchgroup.com to download your free values worksheet. That's thecatchgroup.com to download your free values worksheet to get to your core values and take action on what matters most. Welcome to this week's episode of the You Belong in a C-Suite podcast. In the podcast in the last few months, we've been focusing on topics to help you wind down your year sooner, to slow down a bit instead of ramping it up. This week's episode is in that same vein. Today, we are talking about the importance of pausing with praise. When I hear my coaching clients talk about praise, they often say things like, I don't really need praise or recognition. That's not a really big deal to me. I do it for my team, but I don't need it myself. That may be very true. People are motivated by lots of different things. Some people need praise or recognition. Some may not. Even when they do, recognition is very personal. The wrong kind of praise or recognition may be demotivating to someone instead of motivational. Here's an example for me. I'm an introvert and would prefer to not get praised in front of lots of people. Now, don't get me wrong. I love getting awards for accomplishments. That's totally cool. But please, oh please, don't make me go in front of a large crowd to receive an award or talk about it. That's not super fun for me. It's more anxiety producing. Instead, have someone that I know and trust tell me about the award and what I did was impactful. That's what really matters to me. My value of achievement will love the award, but my introverted self doesn't need to receive it at a big awards dinner. However, I still do want to be invited to the dinner, and I want to sit with my friends in the back so that I can clap and cheer for everyone else. Now that sounds perfect. What I love about those dinners or those kinds of things is that you're pausing to reflect on what's important. That is such a visible part of a company culture, pausing to share with everyone what is incentivized and creating spaces for positive reinforcement. By celebrating achievements of others, we are pausing, we are reflecting, we are slowing down, hopefully. But all too often, we aren't pausing at all. We are getting right to the next thing we need to accomplish. As you continue your end of year wind down, let's use praise as a way to pause, slow down, and reflect. I built the Values First framework to use with leaders, teams, and organizations. To make it simple, I built that framework with that acronym that spells out values. And so in that, the U stands for uplifting others. And to uplift others, you need to ensure that you're supporting yourself, your peers, and the team to hold and prioritize those values. And one way to do that is through rewards and recognition, recognizing the values that reinforce the culture you want. And in our episode today, we'll first practice this pause with praise for ourselves, creating space for celebrating our own accomplishments. Then we'll talk about how you can pause with praise for your team. Pausing with praise for yourself, that will most likely be harder to do for you than it is for others. Again, you may not need it, but because you're going to the next thing, you may feel like you have more important things to do. But here's a couple of reasons why I want you to do it anyway. I want you to pause with praise for yourself because one, you need to realize all the great stuff you're doing. By human nature, we are often very keenly aware of the things we aren't doing well. We might even hyper-focus on them. As I coach high achievers in pretty big roles, when I get feedback from their stakeholders, like their manager, their peers, or their direct reports, I provide them themes of their strengths and their themes for their development. And I do this for my coaching clients. And then from there, they build an action plan and continue to develop themselves as a leader. And most often, when they get those reports and those themes, they want to jump straight into the opportunity areas. They don't really want to spend any time looking through their strengths. But that's where we start. We start with strengths. I ask them questions like, what was validated in these themes of your strengths? What was new information? And my favorite question, what are you most proud of after reading these? Usually leaders come back with an insight that is very meaningful to them, that they can tie back to their values, motivations, or the impact of their work. But they're mostly inclined to skip over all the good stuff others say about them. I want you to celebrate your strengths. Most often, you can use your strengths to get an even bigger impact or to leverage a strength to use when working on an opportunity area or a business challenge. But you won't get the benefit of those insights if you don't reflect on what is going well. The second reason I want you to pause with praise for yourself is because, like it or not, you are your own best advocate to create the career and life you want. Often, especially marginalized groups like people of color or women, downplay or minimize their accomplishments. With that also comes imposter syndrome. When a big role comes up, they don't feel like they're qualified for the job, so they don't apply. Instead, I want you to be ready when those opportunities come up. And how do you do that? By knowing what you're good at and by using small and big moments to tell others about those things. By reflecting on your accomplishments, when that next opportunity does come in front of you, you'll be prepared to put your name in the hat for it because you'll already have a list of your accomplishments at the ready. There are several podcast episodes where we've covered other topics similar to this, like episode 106, Hype Your Achievements with Ashni Shah, episode 37, Brag Better with Meredith Feynman, and episode 130, Build and Keep Confidence with Nicole Khalil. Listen to those episodes if you haven't already. We'll link them in the show notes. So those are two pretty good reasons to pause with praise for yourself. You need to realize all the great stuff that you're doing, and you need to be in a really great position to be your own best advocate. So hopefully I've convinced you that this is worth doing for yourself. Now, how do you do it? I want you to make an appointment with yourself to pause with praise and ask yourself these two questions. What are you most proud of this week? And how does that tie to your values? What are you most proud of this week? And how does that tie to your values? I want you to answer those questions and keep a running list. You'll be able to look back on it and check in for themes and or feelings. And then when needed, you can go back to that list. So here's an example for myself from the last couple of weeks. So what am I most proud of this week? I'm proud of meeting some milestones on my second book in the past few weeks. I've prioritized that time to make it feel abundant. I scheduled time in an Airbnb not far away from where I live and work, but I knew I would get focused work done there. I set up a plan and I accomplished it. I turned in my manuscript to the publisher, which is a big deal. So how does that tie to my values? It ties to my values of achievement by meeting and setting a goal. And it ties to my value of balance by giving myself room and space that I needed to do it. I didn't feel rushed or stressed, and I created the physical and mental balance that I needed to complete that milestone. So that did not take that long for me. I know you can find time to do this for yourself too. Pause with praise for yourself. Next, we are going to pause with praise for your team. Do you give your team positive reinforcement? I'm sure you do. But do you give it intentionally? I want you to think about these two things when giving praise to your team: how specific it is and who you are giving it to. So often we'll give praise, but it is rushed. And lots of times it's very general. Maybe after a presentation or a big meeting, you might say, "Great job" to the project team. But what was great about it? What specifically did you see them do that was so great? I want you to be specific. I want you to tell them about the behavior that you saw. It will reinforce more of that behavior. Believe me, they want to know why they're being successful, and they want to know from you, their manager or leader. So instead of giving the general "great job" or "hey, that was a great call," I want you to specifically tell them why the actions and behaviors were impactful and specifically what they did. Even more bonus points if you can tie it back to a team value or behavior. That way, you're reinforcing the culture that you want to build and keep. By giving that specific praise to the team, you're modeling what you want to see more of. You're creating a pause to reflect and talk about why that behavior is so important. You can use praise to slow down, to really talk about the team's achievements before you move on to that next thing too quickly. So that second thing, who are you giving praise to? Now that we've talked about being specific, who are you being specific for? You may not realize it, but you may not have equity on who you're giving praise to. If you've worked on or led a team, you know that there are varied levels of performance on any team. You may have high performers, those rock stars that always go above and beyond in everything that they do. You have your key contributors that are solid professionals, and their consistency and their results or their expert knowledge keeps your team going. You may even have some low performers who aren't quite meeting expectations. Or you may even have some empty seats on your team because of a transition. Lots of various levels of experience and contribution to the team. But you are still leading that whole team, not just the ones that are doing well. Everyone should get positive feedback, no matter what level of performance. Now, that doesn't mean that some members aren't also getting feedback for improvement too in a separate conversation with you, but everyone should still be getting praise in some way or another. If you aren't giving it to everyone, you may be seen as a leader who has favorites. And most likely, you aren't aware that you're doing this because you haven't been intentional about pausing with praise. In each of your one-on-ones with your direct reports, I'd love for you to ask them what they're most proud of, and then also share something that should be praised. Do this with everyone, regardless of performance level. And before you tell me that not everybody is doing something that should be praised, I'm going to push back a bit. I think that you can praise people on lots of different things. You can praise them on their attitude, on their progress, on their openness to hearing feedback. There's lots of things that can be put on the table. But remember, still want to make it specific. By slowing down with each direct report, you are creating an intentional moment of reflection and showing them what you value about their performance or style. And you're doing it for everyone. Take it a step further and have a time set aside in your agenda and your team meetings to pause with praise at the beginning of each meeting. That way you can acknowledge the hard work the team is doing, you can celebrate wins, and you can hear from others on the impact the team is making. Open it up for everyone to share. You don't have to be the only voice in that room. By slowing down using pause with praise, you are creating intentional moments to slow down and celebrate for yourself, your direct reports, and your team. I hope you are able to incorporate this concept of pausing with praise in your year-end wind down. Remember, your leadership belongs here. you belong in the C-suite. I want to thank you so much for listening to the You Belong in the C-Suite podcast. If you are enjoying this content, please remember to rate and review on Apple Podcasts. By leaving a review, you are helping others find this content. We will be featuring 5-star reviews on air in upcoming episodes. Editing and support for the podcast is done by S&E Podcast Management. To get more tips and tools to help you live a life guided by your values, go to thecatchgroup.com. Keep your boundaries and take care.